afternoon to chairperson and the participants. I welcome you to this presentation. The purpose of this presentation is to find out the effectiveness of using improvisations to develop English speaking skills. This is the content of this presentation. First, let me introduce the key term improvisations. An improvisation is a situational role play in which students do not use any pre-written material. A pair of students is given a role card and they are asked to react spontaneously in the given situation. They become actors in front of an audience and create a scene. This is a sample improvisation used in our study. In this, student A acted as a manager at the restaurant and student B acted as a customer who wanted to make a complaint. So what made us interested in exploring more about the effects of improvisation is that we noticed undergraduates were highly enthusiastic in acting out improvisation, especially as a warmer in the class prior to the main English lessons. And also we found that studying about the effect of improvisations is significant because there is little opportunity provided to practice speaking in many English classes, and also students' personality factors such as anxiety and nervousness affects their English language improvement. According to Murthy, speaking English has become the problem when one looks at the students who pass out from national and private universities in Sri Lanka. And on the other hand, we notice that most of the language teachers of adults are reluctant to use role plays as they appear unprofessional if they focus on lesson on playing instead of serious study. So, the purpose of teaching speaking is to make them aware of social and cultural rules appropriate in diverse communicative situations. So, we need to provide them the speaking competence in relation to act out in different situations. So the aim of this study is to identify the effects of improvisations in order to develop speaking skills. The objectives of our study included to provide an opportunity for undergraduates to take part in improvisations regularly and to measure the improvement of their speaking competence after acting out improvisations. Let me introduce the literature review of our study. Proctor identified that there are two objectives when including improvisations. First, overcoming resistance to the foreign language and creating a need for speaking. Paudriol in 2010 argued that ELT professionals need to use improvisations more because the artificial classroom can be transformed into a real situation, providing opportunities for students' second language development. The major theorists, these theorists, or they presented the hypotheses, they have often already proved as theories. Michael Long's interaction hypothesis, in which Long argues that input is not sufficient for language learning to occur and more attention should be given to interaction that learners are engaged in. Swain, with this output hypothesis, responds to Long's interaction hypothesis and argued that the learner's attempts to produce language that is comprehensible to others contribute to the second language acquisition process. The study is similar to our study, which is an experimental study done by Mackey, focusing on interaction that facilitates second language development using a pre-test and post-test design. The results concluded that there is a link between interaction and grammatical development, but Mackey did not focus much attention on improving the fluency of speaking of his participants. In exploring the literature relevant to improvisations, we identified that there are many research on identifying grammatical development after using improvisations, and most studies were about using pre-planned role plays with young learners. Therefore, the result of this study would contribute to English language teaching to adult learners with its emphasis on the importance of effects in relation to improvisations. Let me introduce the methodology employed. That in 1986 identified experimentation is appropriate in the study of small group interaction. The sample of this study included 48 adult intermediate level learners who followed the LLB degree program in their second year, and they were randomly assigned to the experimental group and the control group. They were at the age of 21 to 23 years. This is the model that I used in this experiment, which I employed pre-test and post-test control group design. At the very first, students' proficiency of English was measured in using the pre-test, and after that, only the experimental group was introduced to this improvisational intervention, and the control group did not have a chance to engage in the improvisational intervention. Only they had the regular speaking lessons in the normal LLB program. And also the experimental group also got that normal lessons. Apart from that, the intervention was introduced to them. At the end of the intervention, we measured their speaking competence to identify whether there is a significant improvement in the English proficiency of the experimental group. We had a post-test, and also we measured the proficiency of the competence in the control group. So that the two criteria that we employed are fluency and accuracy in testing their speaking proficiency. The speaking tests were conducted in 3 stages. In the first stage, it's all about getting to know the candidate, and we asked about the general topics like family and hobbies, and let them be relaxed and talk naturally. In the second stage of the test, the student is given a particular topic, and he was asked to make notes, given 1 minute, and after that, the candidate has to speak for 2 minutes on the topic. And in the third stage, the examiner asks further questions to provide an opportunity to discuss more about the topic. In analyzing the data, we use the paired sample test to identify the difference of mean values of the test scores of both pre-test and post-test before and after the intervention. The qualitative data was drawn from interviews with the students in the experimental group and the researchers' journals of students' performance. The decision rule employed here is marks obtained at the post-test is greater than the marks obtained at the pre-test, so that the significance value should be less than the significant level of 5%. These are the results of our study. The significant value of the paired sample t-test included that with the experimental group and the control group, both had an improvement in their speaking proficiency. It was 0.000 of the experimental group and 0.017 of the control group. Let me describe the difference of the mean values, then you can show that there is a development specifically with the experimental group. At the beginning, they were nearly at the same proficiency level when we put them into the experiment and the control group. But after the 15 weeks of improvisational intervention, the experimental group outperformed the control group. So we conclude that improvisations have had a positive impact on the development of the undergraduate fluency and accuracy in speaking with our quantitative data analysis. Now let me present some feedback we got in the informal interviews conducted with the students, and we thematically analyzed their responses. The most noteworthy finding was that improvisations reduced their inhibition in speaking, and also they were highly enthusiastic in acting out in the English class, where they had finding the classroom as a relaxed environment. So the effect of improvisations that we identified, that we noticed the teacher had a less dominant role in the classroom, and they were more student-centered, and there was a lot of active participation of the students, and they worked together in helping each other in promoting live classroom environment, and it built creativity. They bring a lot of creativity in acting out the improvisations, and they were actively listening to others' improvisations. And also they use gestures and body language appropriate, and they were so focused on acting in front of an audience. And also they confidently build rapport with the audience as well. So they produce utterances spontaneously in unexpected situations. So the conclusions of this study include regular use of improvisations, develop speaking skills, and we wanted to provide an opportunity to practice speaking, and it was a chance for them to interact with others, as I mentioned, and also confidence and creativity was improved. There was an improvement of undergraduates' speaking competence after the use of improvisations. So we recommend that if you provide opportunities for learners to experiment with the language, improvisations are most important and they are ideal. So you can let them a chance to use language outside the fixed dialogues. Let them be creative and use language creatively. And be careful, improvisations are useful most for the intermediate, upper intermediate and advanced students. And they are not suitable for beginners. Beginners need more pre-planned activities. And teachers' help is much needed. And also, in future, I would like to give a future insight in this stage of my presentation. We need to identify the effect of improvisations in relation to the language learners' target situation needs, like their future profession and studies. So that future researchers can study more about using improvisations specific to their target needs. With that, I conclude my presentation on effectiveness of using improvisations in second language learning. Thank you for your participation.